Welcome back to the Tiny Area Hangar. This is Mike, and today I want to talk to you about the IronFactory EX-51, their Power Falcon. This is their take on a stylized version of Powerglide, and it looks pretty interesting. I think this is really the only Legends Powerglide that's on the market right now, and we're going to take a good look at this. I did get this at Shozi. You can get yours there too. I'll have a link down below. Let's take a look at this guy coming up. Alright, so let's take a quick look at the box, and here it is. Got like a window box. You can kind of see the figure in there. Kind of typical, very small. You got some artwork on the side that looks like the actual figure, and then you can kind of see the different modes, different poses, kind of stuff. Typical IronFactory package, small and efficient. Okay, so looking at Power Falcon right out of the package, and he looks pretty interesting. Actually, he's probably more visually interesting than a G1 representation would be. But he does have a nice, deep, kind of a burgundy color. Now, I kind of think of Powerglide as a little bit more bright red than this, but it still looks pretty good. It's pretty interesting. The color isn't bad at all. Interesting, though, they did take the choice of, instead of having these wings go all the way up, the other parts of this are actually on his arm. So that's different. That's a different style, different choice that they made right there. So taking a look at him also from the back, he has a little bit of kind of the plane mode just there on his back, just chilling. So it's not horrible, it's not the end of the world, but it is there. So looking at some articulation and stuff going on with him, he does have his head on a ball joint, and it does all of that stuff that the ball jointed heads do. Shoulders go out about 90, 360 all the way around. And then you have a ball joint right here, so nothing at the, I don't see anything right here. You can kind of go up and down, and I think that's for transformation, but that doesn't really, that's not really much of articulation. I guess you could try to say it's a double jointed elbow or something. And then the hand goes in, again, for transformation. And then at the waist, he has the swivel, no crunch, and pretty much all the range you'd need in the hip area. And then you do have, right here you can see this mushroom peg, so you do have that swivel at the thigh. And you get quite a bit of range with the knee, but it's blocked by this back piece kibble. And then down at the foot's on a ball joint, and your foot has toes. The only transformer I know that has toes that can move around, I guess, if you want to look at it like that. So regular kind of articulation that you'd see. Now looking at some of the paint apps, now one thing that they do is they do a good job applying the paint where they do paint it, but it's mostly bare plastic all over the red and the that's not even silver, it's more like a tan. So there's tiny bit of paint right here on his head, on his face, on his eyes. They're like a blue, and then they've got some chest paint right here, which looks really good, and that nice silver chrome. Then there's a blue paint app here, and then some more paint down here on this kind of a grayish tannish leg piece, and then a really shiny kind of silver for the thrusters on the sides there, and then a little bit more paint apps that we're going to see that carry forward into the alt mode. So let's go ahead and have a quick look at his accessory. His accessory is a gun, and it does kind of, the barrel moves a little bit on it, and it does stow away. So in his alt mode, it actually becomes part of his alt mode. That's why it kind of looks like this, so it matches his alt mode when he transforms. So interesting gun. I don't remember what exactly a Powerglide gun would look like anyway. So I guess they took liberties with it however they wanted. Here is the comparison of him next to the KO oversized Legends, which that's quite a bit of a glare right there. But as you can see, the aesthetic on this is more classically designed. This guy here is more in scale. I guess you could say sort of more in scale. This one can't really fit on a Legends shelf and look right because he tower over everybody. But maybe the original Hasbro Legends one might work. But still, that is a more interesting look. This is more classic. So I want to start out some comparisons with comparing him to G1. And with that, that's kind of the look I'm going for on my shelf. This is a little bit on the stylized side for me, but there's not another Powerglide on the market, and so I'm going to be happy with this until I see a G1 version come out. But still with it, it does capture the character, so that works for me. But yeah, I'm more of like looking for something G1 in the Legend scale. So comparing him to some more IronFactory Autobots, and this is pretty much the extent. I do have his brother, Racing Bros, here. So looking at them, I would think these two actually look a little bit less stylized, and they went way stylized on the Power Falcon. So I actually am pretty pleased with this guy. He fits into my collection and blends in into more of a G1 aesthetic. But I do know people like the IronFactory aesthetic, and they're getting that with this guy here really well. So that's how they stack up. Now, I was surprised to see how much shorter he was than his other Autobot offerings that are out there, because usually this character is just a little bit taller than the rest of them that are out there. But he is, again, if you think back on it, he was a mini-bot back in the day. So size and scale is kind of your own preference. Here's how he stacks up with kind of a group family shot with all these different companies. So this is New Age Monero, and this is New Age, forgot his name, but Ironhide. And then this is Toy World's Whiskey Jack, Magic Square, and Magic Square. So looking at this, yeah, he kind of fits in. He'll fit onto my shelf just fine. And if this is what your shelf looks like with the rest of that, he'll fit in just fine. Okay, so we're going to get this guy transformed up. We're going to turn his head, and then we're going to pull this piece here out and rotate it around and collapse on the back of his head. And then we're going to move on to some of these arms here and pull them out. We are going to, well, let's take that gun out. He doesn't need his gun in there. Rotate this around, fold this up. And the goal here is to get this wing into place. Okay, so it needs to look like this. There's the handout to get it to line up properly. It's so strange because it doesn't really match the aesthetic we're used to seeing. There it goes. And then you can fold this down. Going over to the other side over here, get a little bit of room to work. So it actually rotates the opposite direction I would have thought it would have rotated. So there it is. And plug it in. So a lot of things that are just moving at the same time right there, but you got to get this tabbed into there, and it's good, and then fold down the hand on that. So you got the wings in place there. Okay, so coming right here to the back here, we're going to disconnect this, and we're going to kind of move them up out of the way, and we're going to lift this piece here up, and the whole kind of chest piece and whole assembly right here is going to rotate down, and let's get that to rotate down. There it goes. And that's going to just kind of lower the position of the wings. Let's get all that into place there. Get this. Also, before we go any further, we need to rotate the legs. And there's a little gun in here in the cockpit. Get that out of there. And then that was going to close and collapse over all this just right. If it's all lined up just right, it's going to collapse just right. There it is. All right, so now with that, so we're going to fold this over to make that sort of where it belongs, and then this is going to tab into the wing, like so. Same thing over here. And it seems like I got a little bit too much space in there. There it goes. And that connects, and that connects. Now we got to move on to the legs. So we're going to turn, let's get over here. We're going to turn the lower leg like this on each side without your feet rubbing into each other. Now, one of the things that's going to happen, which is interesting, is that you do kind of have like a slider joint right here, and you're going to slide it, and it's going to connect into here. So easier said than done on that. Probably just this disconnected on me. That's probably how we're going to have to do both. So slide up the other side. I guess we can look at it from here. Slide up this piece right here, and then you kind of rock it into place, or work it into place, and then reconnect, like so. And ball joints, so I had a couple things on ball joints pop off on me. I guess I'm not as graceful as I should be with it, but it is what it is, right? That comes together. Pop this back on, this foot. Now, the foot, it's interesting too because you can position it however you want for, go back together, however you want for like the tail fin and all that. So you can move it outwards like so, over here. Maybe move it outwards like that. Something like that. I'm gonna try to make it match the picture as close as I can. Get all the wings tabbed back in and all that kind of stuff. So there it is. I'm gonna have a look at it in its alt mode. I'm gonna try to make it match the picture exactly, but since it's not a standard G1 like that, I mean, it's stylized, it is what it is. So here he is in his alt mode, and really, in my opinion, not the most intuitive transformation, and definitely, like, you still look at it and go, are we there? Is there something else that needs to happen with this? But there's actually some things you can do with it. So first off, you have this landing gear that goes right here. Then you also have the gun. So you need to transform the gun, fold this down and fold this down, and then you can plug the gun in to the back here for a landing gear, for more landing gear. And it's kind of interesting too because it's going to give it a little bit more stability. So you got more landing gear. Now it's more stable. It holds together because these two pieces don't actually tab together. And these are just, this tab's too loose to hold it all together. This is what holds it together. So another feature on this is for this back piece, you have a moving fin right here that will help move the feet around so that you can do whatever you want for posing, I guess, these things. So I'm not really sure what they're going for with having all these massive numbers of tail fins in the back, but that's the way it is. So anyhow, those are some of the options with it. So looking at it, some of the paint that carried through, we just have all this black right here. We have this gun, but that's not painted. This is the chest silver that was there. Now it moved up front. So I kind of rather like that. So that's his chest from straight on rotated. Now it's at the front of that. So that is actually kind of a cool carryover. I like that. We saw these on the side of his legs, these engines, and now they are right there just looking like thrusters. Really awesome. I do think that this area where the arms are is a mess. Just the whole way that's done. I prefer all the G1 style ideas more than this. This still copies and mimics G1 in a way, but I think that's unsightly and it doesn't really do anything for it. I actually probably would rather his hands be out. The hands are tight too, so I'd probably rather his hands be out and give it more of a G1 homage than to tuck them down and just look weird. But again, you know, we options, and we're just kind of trying to do it the way they show, but either have the hands out or they should have folded all the way back in or something. But still, I mean, it's a Legends figure. Legends figures get passed on things like that. So anyway, some of these tabs kind of come undone as I mess with it, as I fiddle with it, but it still feels pretty solid overall. Like it's in there pretty solid. It's not like it's completely fallen out. It's just some of these tabs, as I manipulate it, do come out and they just need to be tightened back up because they're not really that deep of tabs. They're not seated in very deep. So anyhow, it looks okay. I mean, it's all right. I think it's time to do a few comparisons though. Okay, so here it is next to a G1 Powerglide, and I have to admit that this is kind of what I think of when I think of Powerglide, but this actually has a more interesting look. It is definitely an interesting look if it's something you're in for. So I kind of do see why the stylized designs take off at the IronFactory and all that kind of stuff. But there it is with that. And I do have one more Powerglide to compare to. The KO oversized version of the last Hasbro Legends, and you can see the difference. Which I thought this one still, I was like, oh, this one kind of misses the mark itself. Just it's a little kibbly within itself for being kind of a G1-esque type of plane. Because they weren't going super G1 back then either. So it's a bit stylized, and then so you've got this guy here. But this is too big, because it's the KO oversized, to be on a Legends shelf. Maybe the actual Legends figure would fit on the shelf just fine, but I bet you they're going to do another Powerglide pretty soon. Okay, so staying within the realm of jets here, we've got a Blitzwing going on right there. It's a nice comparison to Blitzwing, and kind of can see Size-wise, since he expands out so much, he's almost taken up as much space as Blitzwing, although Blitzwing is a much, much bigger bot than him. Here he is next to his racing bro, and this is the runabout, runamuck, whatever, and there it is. Pretty cool. There is Iron Trans. Iron Trans is the Prowl. Looks pretty cool. A couple of mini bots from Magic Square and New Age. I think this one's the Magic Square. And this one's the old New Age, so I don't have any of the New Age. The New Age Bumblebees. So this has been my look at the IronFactory IF EX-51 Power Falcon. It's pretty cool. It's pretty interesting. Very stylized. So the good things about it are that it does have some articulation. It does look pretty interesting. There are some interesting paint apps about it. So overall, it's not a bad figure. I'm glad I picked it up. It does kind of capture the character in a way with a stylized, modernized take. Now, the downside about it is, though, that it doesn't quite match as well in my collection as some of the other IronFactory options that they put out that I already have, such as their Mirage. And also, it's the transformation, not so intuitive. You're kind of putting it together going, is this really where this piece goes? And yeah, I guess that's where it goes. So it's not a super intuitive transformation, but the transformation also does lend itself to giving you options, such as how I've configured that back end to look more classic style. But will there be like a Magic Square or a New Age Powerglide eventually? Yes, eventually. But we don't know when. It could be 2023, 2025. So I picked this guy up, so I have it in my collection. And you can pick yours up too at Show Z. I'll have a link down below. Like, subscribe, Twitter, Hanger out.